Hello and welcome to the subject of novel. The first topic is meaning of novel. Let's discuss about it. Number one, the germ seed of the novel writing lies in the art of medieval romance. Look here, the germ, we can call seed, or we can call root. So the germ of the novel writing, or the seed of the novel writing, or origin of the novel writing lies in the art of medieval romance. But what is medieval romance? Go to the next point to know about it. Medieval romance comes from the word medieval, which is related to the Middle Age in Europe, and romance refers to a tale of love and adventure. Look here, medieval romance, actually this is a kind of tale, this is a kind of a story, and that story is about love and adventure that was very popular in the Middle Age in Europe. That is why we call medieval and romance. So the word medieval means it is related to the Middle Age in Europe, and romance, it refers to a tale of love and adventure. Adventure is a situation in which you accept challenges and you move on. You don't withdraw yourself. Go to the next point, number 3. Thus, medieval romance is about the story of love and adventure that was popular during the time of. So, meaning of a novel. One group of people, they believe that the germ of the novel, or the seed of the novel, or the origin of the novel goes back to the era of Middle Age in Europe. And during that point of time, there was a trend, there was a way of telling the story that was known as medieval. So most people believe that the novel could be traced back to the era of Middle Age in Europe, that is to medieval romance. We move on to the next. In 1350, Boccaccio, a famous Italian writer of his time, wrote a collection of short stories in prose. Now, we have another set of ideas about the origin of novel, about novel from where it has come. So in 1350, there was a writer, a famous Italian writer, and his name is Boccaccio, and he wrote a collection of short stories in prose form. That time there was no novel as such we have today in modern time. Number 5, that was entitled Decameron. Such stories in Italian language are known as novelle or novella. Look here, this person, Boccaccio, is a famous Italian writer, and he wrote a book, and the name of the book is Decameron. It was written in Italian language, and it is a collection of short stories. And that collection of short stories, which is entitled Decameron, is known as, in Italian language, novel. We call it novella. Now, point number 6. The term novel originally means a fresh story which is shorter than a novel. So normally the word novel, Novelle, and with another spelling, novella, Novella, basically both are having the same meaning, and it means that a fresh story. Fresh story means a new story. And novella normally is longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. Point number 7. People widely believe novel or novella is the root source of novel writing. So another set of people, another group of people, they believe that the germ of the novel, the seed of the novel, the origin of the novel could be traced back to the term of novella in Italian language, and from where it has come to English language. In English literature, we know as novel. So this could also be considered as the root source of novel writing. So literally the word novel comes from Italian word novella. It means a fresh story which is shorter than a novel, and this is considered as the root source of. Okay, now go to the next definitions of novel. F. Marion Crawford, a popular American novelist, once described the novel as a pocket theater containing as it does all the accessories of drama. Look, it's a very beautiful definition by F. Marion Crawford, and F. Marion Crawford is an American novelist, and according to the writer, novel as a pocket theater. Why pocket theater? Look, the size of a novel is like a book, and that book you can put in the pocket. That is why we call pocket theater. Why we call pocket theater? Because basically novel contains what a drama contains. So that is why it is said that it does all the accessories of drama, containing as it does all the accessories of drama. Means in novel we have actions, we have characters, we have situations, we have plot, so on and so forth. In the same manner in drama, we have all such actions, characters, movement, background, setting, and so on. So what we find in novel is also to be found in drama. Therefore, novel could be considered as a pocket theater according to the definition of this person, F. Marion Croft. Now we go on to the definition number 2. Novel is formally defined as a long narrative in prose detailing the actions of fictitious people. Fictitious people. Look here. Now point number 2 is a very good and formally defined. What is novel? It is long. Okay. The quality of novel is that normally it is long, not short. Okay. Narrative in prose. It means narrative in prose means narrative means it comes from a word narrate, and narrate means to tell a story. So it is a long story in which we tell a story, and that story we tell in prose form, not in poetry form. So a long narrative in prose detailing the actions of fictitious people, and in that long narrative in prose we talk about the actions of fictitious people in detail. That is why we call detailing the actions. Means we write every detail of the actions of the characters in the novel. Of fictitious people means invented people, created characters. What do we do in novel? In novel, we think of a character, we create characters, we imagine characters. And when we imagine characters and we talk about them, they become our fictitious characters, fictitious people. That is why we call fictitious people. So this is a very good definition, beautiful definition, a long narrative in prose detailing the actions of fictitious people. Okay, we move on to the next. Meredith called it a summary of actual. According to this writer, Meredith, what is a novel? A novel is a summary of actual, a brief account of our real life. So a summary means a brief account. Actual life means real. So what do we find in novel? When you read novel, what is a novel? Novel is a mirror of, a reflection of. That is why we call it a summary of. It gives a fuller representation of real life and character. In novel, we observe that a fuller representation, a complete representation, a complete reflection of real life and character is there to see for us. Go to the next. Novel has been criticized as the loosest form of the literary. So novel has also been criticized as the loosest form of the literary, not a compact form. It means that in novel you have a lot of freedom. You can do whatever you like. You can talk, you can keep on talking about the characters, situations, actions, and so on and so forth. So because of such reasons, it is considered that novel is the loosest form of the literature, not very compact form of the literature. Next, W.H. Hudson remarks, anyone can write a novel who has pens, ink, and paper at command, and a certain amount of leisure and patience. So this is also one of the ways in which novel has been defined by W.H. Hudson. What does it say is that anyone can write a novel if you have pens, if you have ink, you have paper at command, and you have free time, and you have patience. You can write a novel. So normally that, what it means is that normally novel is a long story, and we cannot finish writing a novel in one day. So you have to have patience, and you must also have free time, and you must also have ample amount of resources, like here they are talking about pens, ink, and paper, and so on. But in modern time, no need to talk about pens, ink, and paper. You can even write a novel on computer and all that. So this is about definition of novel. Now we move on to the next. Let's talk about questions. Explain the following terms briefly. Number 1, medieval. 2, romance. 3, medieval romance. And 4th, novel. So explain the terms briefly. When I talk about questions, to write briefly, don't write your answer in detail. Okay, go to the 2. Write in detail about the meaning of novel. Write all the points about the meaning of novel. Question number 3. Write any one definition of novel you like more. There are a few definitions. You can choose any one of the definitions you like most. Go to the next. True, false question. Novel is not criticized as the loosest form of the literature. I think it is false. Okay, novel is the representation of real life and character. It's true. The term novel means an old story. False. Medieval romance refers to the story of love and hate. False. Novel is regarded as a pocket theater. True. Okay, now go to the next answer for the short questions. Explain the following terms briefly. Medieval, it is related to middle age in Europe. Romance, it refers to a tale of love and adventure. Medieval romance, it is about the story of love and adventure that was popular during the time of middle age. Novel, it is a fresh story which is shorter than a novel. So we have the answers written in brief. The structure of novel. Before we discuss what do we mean by structure of novel in detail, let's first try to understand the concept of a structure in novel. A structure shapes an idea or thought. The word structure refers to the way we organize an idea or thought. We have another set of words. A structure shapes an idea or thought to a defined conclusion. We have the same idea but in a different manner. In fact, an idea or thought is shapeless without a structure. We move on to the next. A structure as a framework of a story. In the context of novel, a structure is how the events are organized. A structure is how the story is shaped. It is the framework of the story. It is the outline of the story. A structure is the map of the construction of ideas in a novel. We continue. A structure divides a story into parts. A structure also refers to how writers divide a story into parts, how they connect and resolve each phase, each conflict to attain that much anticipated goal. It points to how you can build and arrange a story around a central idea or theme. We continue with some more ideas. A structure defines the beginning, middle and end. In simpler terms, a structure in a novel is a means of giving a clear definition of the beginning, the middle and the end of a story. Elements in the structure of novel. The following are the vital elements in the structure of novel. They work as bricks upon which the structure of novel is built. What are they? They are: number 1, character; 2, plot; 3, setting; 4, point of view; 5, theme; 6, style. Hope structure in novel. Types of novel, explanation and examples. So the first type is historical novel, picaresque novel, sentimental novel, psychological novel, pastoral novel, and the last one is detective novel. These are some of the 6 most important types of novels. Let's first discuss each one of them one by one. And the first one is historical novel. Historical fiction, sometimes we call historical novel and sometimes we call historical fiction, is a literary genre where the story takes place in the past. So in historical novel, normally the story has to take place in the past because it narrates the story that happened in the past. The next point, it should take place during an authentic period in history and be set in a real historical place. So what it means here is this, that the story must take place in authentic period in history. Means that must have a real life historical connection and the whole atmosphere should be set in a real historical place. We have some more ideas about historical novel. The plot in a historical novel is a combination of real and fictional events. It combines both real and fictional incidents, events to make it more interesting to the reader. We can invent characters, cities and events, but they still must make sense to the time period. You can do whatever you like, but whatever imagination you have, whatever the characters you portray, the cities you create in historical novel, at least they must make sense, they must make meaning to the time in which you are going to write historical novel. That is the point. We continue. We have some more ideas about historical novel. The characters can be real, fictional or both, but they should all look, speak and act in ways that accurately reflect the era. As I told, you could portray the real characters, you may also portray fictional characters, imaginative characters I mean to say, but they must all look and speak and act in ways that resemble the real life characters, the real life kings and queens, the real life persons and so on. We have some more ideas. The dialogue must be authentic to the time period and should reflect the status of the characters who are speaking. So the treatment of conversation, the way the characters speak, the dialogue must also be authentic to the time in which the historical novel has been set. That is the point here. Now we have examples of historical novel. The most famous example of historical novel is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Then we have Romola by George Eliot. The third one is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Here I have just enumerated 3 most famous examples of historical novel. There are many. We continue our discussion. Now we have picaresque novel. Picaresque novel is an early form of novel. No need to explain. We trace its origin in the early form of novel writing. It is usually written in a first-person narrative. Means normally it is depicted in the first person, like I or we, like this. It is related to the adventures of a rogue or low-born adventurer as he drifts from place to place and from one social milieu to another in his effort to survive. So normally picaresque novel refers to the adventures of a rogue kind of person, a person whose social status is very low. So picaresque novel normally depicts a character who is rogue in nature and quality and does not have higher social status. That is the point here. We have some more ideas about picaresque novel. Northrop defines the picaresque novel as a realistic portrayal of criminal life. So it makes the point very clear that picaresque novel, the characters come from lower level of social status. It realistically portrays the criminality or the criminal aspect of the life of a person. We continue. In which criminals and their tricks constitute the chief source of interest. So all types of tricks, all types of deceptive tendencies we can find in the form of picaresque novel. We continue our discussion. Examples of picaresque novel. Joseph Andrews, one of the best examples of picaresque novel by Henry Fielding. We have another example, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, and the third one is The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. They are the most famous examples of picaresque novel. We continue our discussion. Now we have sentimental novel. What is this? Let's talk about the sentimental novel, or the novel of sensibility, is an 18th century literary genre. Normally we trace its origin in the 18th century. It celebrates the emotional and intellectual concepts of sentiment. So what we notice is that in the sentimental novel, normally we celebrate emotions in a much more effective way. We have some more points. Sentimental novel relies on emotional response both from the readers and characters. So in sentimental novel, when you read, you feel emotionally attached with the characters. You feel moved by incidents, by the way the characters speak, and so on. So sentimental novel has the quality not only to move you emotionally as a reader, but it also moves emotionally the characters in the story itself, in the novel itself. We have some more ideas about sentimental novel. The sentimental novel exalts feeling above reason and raises the analysis of emotion to a fine art. So it exalts, it celebrates the feeling above reason. Means the heart is more important, the feeling is more important, the emotions are more important. Sometimes emotions overrule the reason and the logic, and then the writer raises this analysis of emotion to a beautiful fine art that becomes more impressive and attractive to the readers. They feature scenes of distress and tenderness, and the plot is arranged to advance both emotions and actions. So in sentimental novels, sometimes you can find characters who go through various types of sufferings and the distress. Sometimes you will have the tenderness of feeling in the characters, in the relationships they make, and so on. And both help advance emotions and actions in the novel. Examples of sentimental novel. Pamela or Virtue Rewarded. Pamela is a very famous novel. Its another subtitle is Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson. We have another example, The Man of Feeling by Henry Mackenzie. Then we have the third one, The Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith. These are some of the most famous examples of sentimental novel. Now we continue our discussion to the next, psychological novel. And what's this? A psychological novel is also called psychological realism. That is, you write a novel in which you portray the mental state of a character which is very keen, which is very much related to the real life incidents, events and characters. That's why we call psychological realism. We have some more ideas. The psychological novel is traditionally understood as a genre of prose fiction that focuses intensively on the interior life of characters, representing their subjective thoughts, feelings, memories, and desires. Reference, the encyclopedia of the novel. So what we come to understand is that it is a type of prose fiction in which we portray, we focus upon the interior life of characters, what the characters think, what the characters feel, and we try to express their subjective thoughts, their subjective feelings, memories, and desires. We don't go for analyzing the characters from objective point of view. We want to portray the inner bent of thought of characters. We have some more ideas about psychological novel. In a psychological novel, the emotional reactions and internal states of the characters are more important than external actions. Well, though internal actions do have their own impact upon the external behaviors of the characters, but in psychological novel, our focus is more upon internal states of the minds of the characters. We have some more ideas. This emphasis on the inner life of characters is a fundamental element of a vast body of psychological fiction. So internal life of characters is very, very important, is necessary in this genre of writing. We have now examples of psychological novel. The first is The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. The second one is Ulysses by James Joyce, and the third one is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. They are the most famous examples of psychological novel. Now we continue our discussion. Pastoral novel. What is pastoral novel? Let's see. Pastoral novel, class of fiction that presents the society of shepherds as free from the complexity and corruption of city life. So pastoral novel, the name itself suggests, it depicts the rural life of the characters. It depicts the society of shepherds, the farmers. The background is normally set in the village, in the countryside, and normally it is free from the complexity and the challenges and the difficulties and the problems of the city life, because city life is more or less more corrupted, more advanced, fast moving, and pastoral life is very slow in the midst of nature, and it appeals to the heart and the mind. We have some more ideas. Pastoral novel is, to put it simply, deals with people living in the countryside, dealing with all the challenges and blessings of nature. We do have challenges in the village as well. We do have challenges in the countryside when we live. But the challenges that we face in the countryside is entirely different from the challenges we face in the complexity of the life of cities. So pastoral novel focuses more upon the way the characters live in the countryside and the challenges and the blessings they face in the form of the reflections of nature. We have examples of pastoral novel. Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy is the most famous example of pastoral novel. We have another example, The Shepherd's Calendar by Edmund Spenser. And the last one, the third one, is The Nun's Priest's Tale by Geoffrey Chaucer is another example of pastoral novel or pastoral type of writing. So these are some of the best examples of pastoral novel. Now we move on to the next, that is to say detective novel. What's this? Detective novel, a type of popular literature in which first a crime is introduced, well, then it is investigated, and finally culprit is revealed. So three things are most important. A crime takes place, investigation is pursued, and finally the culprit is held responsible for the crime he has committed. That is here in detective novel. We have 5 elements are generally included in detective novel. And what are those 5 elements? The first one is it must have perfect crime, then wrongly accused suspect. Then in the beginning of the story, we wrongly suspect another person. Third one is incompetent attitude of police, and normally the police are incompetent to find out the truth in detective novel. Greater powers of observation and superior mind of the detective. So since the police fail to investigate the crime in a perfect manner, in an objective manner, so the responsibility of the police is taken by the detective to find out the truth and investigate the crime. And the last one is surprising result, and that is what makes detective novel very interesting, that the result is very surprising at the end. We have examples of detective novels. Sherlock Holmes, very famous example of detective novel by Arthur Conan Doyle. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, and the third example is The Moving Toy Shop by Edmund Crispin. These are some of the best examples of detective novels. Now we have time to discuss questions. Explain briefly the following historical novel. Second is psychological novel. And the third is pastoral novel. Explain each one of them briefly. We have another type of questions, that is to say, explain any one of them in detail. And the first one is pastoral novel, the second one is picaresque novel, and the third one is sentimental novel. You have to write about any one of them in detail. And the third one is write 5 elements that are necessary to be included in detective novel. And hope you understand the concept. Thank you and goodbye.